I didn't know she was getting married. Or maybe I did. Maybe I just didn't know it would be this soon. Or this real. Or this quiet. The email arrived on a Thursday, mid-morning, right between the two meetings I didn't care about. It was from my mother's address, but it wasn't really from her. Just a copy-paste forward with no message. Just a subject line that said, "Thought you'd want this." There was a photo embedded in the body. My sister, Eliza, standing in a field of baby's breath and dried roses. A man beside her. Not the one from last Christmas. Not the one she cried about in February. I don't know his name. But I know the dress. That dress. It wasn't just a piece of fabric. It was my grandmother's. Hand-stitched. Cream silk. A small rip under the right sleeve I never got around to fixing. It used to hang in my old closet, wrapped in plastic, away from light. Everyone knew it was mine. She promised it to me when I was 16. We were sorting boxes after her fall, back when her knees gave out, and I spent 3 weeks sleeping on the living room couch, because no one else would. I was the one who cleaned her bathroom, cooked her oatmeal, cut her toenails. One night, after a bath, she asked me to bring her the white box with the satin ribbon. I opened it, and it was there, folded like an apology, soft with age. "Try it on," she said. "I think it fits you better than it ever fit me." I didn't. I held it against my chest and said, "Maybe one day." She smiled and said, "It's yours now, darling. You'll wear it when the right man comes. Not for show, for love." Eliza didn't even like the dress. She said it looked colonial and too plain at Thanksgiving once. She laughed about how I'd look like a sad little pioneer bride. She said she wanted something backless, satin, sculpted. Not something dead women wore. But there she was. Standing in my grandmother's dress, in a sunlit field I wasn't invited to, holding hands with a man I'd never met, looking like she'd always belonged in it. Like none of us had ever fought. Like she hadn't called. Me selfish just last month for not driving her to a nail appointment. The email included a livestream link. It said the ceremony would start at 4 p.m. It said, "We know not everyone could be there in person, but we still want you to be part of our special day." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Not everyone could be there. I live 40 minutes away. I didn't RSVP. I didn't click the link. I didn't even text back. I just sat there, staring at the image of the dress, at how the silk fell against her shoulders, how she posed like she'd always known she'd wear it, how my mother smiled in the background, holding Eliza's veil like a proud mother of the bride. No one asked. No one called. No one said, "We thought you'd be standing beside her." Later that day, I found the garment bag, empty, in the back of my closet. The hanger was still there. The ribbon was gone. I don't remember crying, but I remember standing in my apartment kitchen, hand on the counter, wondering how long they'd planned this, how long they'd known I wasn't going to be part of it. The worst part wasn't the dress. It wasn't even the wedding. It was the silence that followed. No one followed up. Not my mother. Not Eliza. Not even my Aunt June, who used to call me after every family gathering just to whisper the gossip she'd held in all night. There was no check-in, no, "Did you watch the live stream?" Not even a fake, "Wish you could have made it." They acted like I wasn't supposed to be there. like I had never been part of the plan. That Sunday, I went to the corner grocery store, mostly just to get out of the house. I wandered the aisles without buying anything. My face felt hot every time I passed a mother with a daughter. One was helping hers pick out shampoo. Another had her hand on her daughter's back, guiding her gently past the cereal aisle. I wanted to hate them. Instead, I just picked up a can of lentil soup and left it at the register when I realized I didn't even want to eat. Back home, I opened an old shoebox from the top of my closet. It had letters from Eliza in it, back when she still lived with Dad in Boston, and I was the one holding the family together after the divorce. She used to write me every month, little drawings in the margins, stickers. One said, "You're my favorite person." Another, "I miss you more than I miss TV." She was 9 then. I was 15. I kept every one of those notes. I don't know when she stopped writing. Maybe it was when she moved back in with Mom. Or maybe it was when I went away for college and stopped replying right away. Or maybe it was just the slow erosion no one warns you about. The way sisters become strangers in their own storylines. The next morning, I called my mother. She picked up on the third ring, cheerful, like everything was normal. "Hi, sweetheart. I was just thinking about you." I don't know what made me ask it. Maybe it was the ache that wouldn't sit down inside me. Maybe it was the emptiness of the closet hanger. "Did you take the dress from my closet?" I asked. She paused, just long enough to answer me without answering. Then, "Well, it was your grandmother's. And Eliza really wanted something with meaning. And I thought, since you're not seeing anyone," there was a sound in my chest that didn't make it to my mouth. A cracking, maybe. Or a closing. I didn't even know she was getting married. Oh, honey, it was so small. Last minute. Barely a real ceremony. You know how fast things happen. It was really her idea to keep it intimate. Intimate. I wanted to laugh. They'd invited 73 people. I'd seen the Facebook photos by then. Aunts I hadn't heard from in years, childhood neighbors, even our old piano teacher. Just not me. I didn't fight. I didn't yell. I said, "Okay," and hung up the phone. And then I sat in my apartment, the same one no one's ever visited, and just stared at my reflection in the microwave door. It was strange. How little it took to undaughter a person. How a dress and an email could make you realize you were never really chosen, even when you thought you were. I haven't responded to any messages since. Not even the one Eliza sent yesterday. It said, "Hope you got the link. The wedding was perfect. Wish you could have been there. Love you, XX, love you, love you." I read it again and again, like it was supposed to soften something. But all it did was remind me of that night in my grandmother's living room, where I held the dress to my chest like a promise, and how somehow I became the stranger watching my own life from a screen. The first time I ever defended Eliza, I was 8. She was 3, red-faced and wailing in the middle of a supermarket aisle, having a meltdown because she wanted the cereal, with the sparkles on the box. Mom yanked her by the arm too hard. People stared. I stepped in. I lied and said she wasn't feeling well, that she'd missed her nap, that it was my fault because I gave her candy in the car. Later, in the back seat, Eliza held my hand and said, "You're my favorite." It's strange how I still remember that moment. As if a sentence like that could have a half-life. As if it could echo this far into adulthood and still feel like currency. There was a time I thought being the responsible one meant I'd be loved more. That showing up would eventually be noticed. That if I helped pay the bills, forgave the shouting, filled the silences, I'd be the one they chose. But it was always her. When Dad left, I was 13. He handed me his house keys like I knew what to do with them. Mom didn't cry. Not when he packed, not when he drove off. She just shut down, completely. For weeks. I made dinner. I got Eliza ready for school. I forged Mom's signature on her permission slips. I wiped down the counters with vinegar and tried to make the house smell normal. I never complained. Not once. And they all forgot it like it was a phase I went through. But she cried over boys, and suddenly she was the sensitive one. She got tattoos and skipped classes, and Mom called her free-spirited. I got a full scholarship and was told to be careful not to act superior. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had rebelled, if I had yelled, if I had thrown the dress in a fire the night Grandma gave it to me and said, "Let someone else carry this history." Maybe then I wouldn't have been so easy to forget. I saw the wedding video 2 nights ago. Not the live stream. I never clicked it. But someone sent it to me. A distant cousin, thinking I'd missed it by accident. It was only 4 minutes long. A montage of soft moments. Eliza stepping out of a barn door, laughing with her veil tangled in the wind. The groom brushing something from her cheek. Mom adjusting the sleeves of the dress like she'd hemmed them herself. There was music. And text overlays. And a quote about chosen families and golden hours. I watched it twice, then a third time. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see how well they lived without me in the frame. I called Grandma's old number. It's disconnected now, of course. But I let it ring once. Just to remember what it sounded like. I didn't go to work the next morning. I turned off my phone and sat in the kitchen with the windows open. The weather had finally shifted. That late autumn crispness when leaves smell like endings. I made tea and left it steeping too long. The air smelled faintly like dried chamomile and regret. I found a photo of me in the dress, from the night Grandma first gave it to me. I was 16. The fabric was gathered under my chin like I was afraid to ruin it. I looked unsure, but proud. Like I was holding the beginning of something sacred. I scanned it. Saved it under a new folder called Proof. There's a part of me that wants to mail it to Eliza. Not out of spite, just so she knows. So she sees what was mine before it became hers. But I won't. She wouldn't feel the weight of it. Not the way I did. Instead, I printed the photo and pinned it inside my closet, right where the dress used to hang, an empty hanger, and beneath it, me. At 16, still believing they'd remember. Eliza called last night. The name lit up my screen like a wound. For a moment I just stared at it, thumb hovering over the red button, but I didn't decline. I didn't answer either. I let it ring out, listening to the soft buzz like it might carry some explanation with it. Some apology folded between the beeps. She didn't leave a voicemail. Just a text a few minutes later. Just wanted to hear your voice. Miss you. My stomach tightened. Not out of sentiment, but out of habit. Because that's what they do. They drop one sweet line and expect it to undo the years it came floating above. I didn't write back. Not because I was angry. Not exactly. But because I've grown tired of being the one who makes things easy again. They don't realize how much effort that takes, how much quiet swallowing it costs just to keep a conversation light. A few days ago, I opened a plastic container in the back of my cabinet. It had dried lavender. Grandma had given me years ago, meant to be sewn into the hem of the dress for good luck. I was supposed to do it the week before my wedding. She even sent me the needle and thread in a tiny envelope. Like a secret spell, I never opened it. It still sits there, thread wrapped neatly, like it's waiting for something that might never come. I thought about sending it to Eliza, letting her finish the ritual, but she didn't ask for it. She didn't even know it existed, and something in me felt good about that, not out of cruelty, but because some things are still mine. Mom emailed me yesterday, a subject line that read, "Christmas plans?" 3 question marks. Like punctuation could mask the timing, the email was short. "Hope you're free to come home. We missed you at the wedding. Eliza wants to do a sister brunch the day after. Love you, Mom." I reread the phrase, "come home." The house hasn't felt like home in years. It's a place I step into sideways, shrink myself to fit. Even the guest room isn't mine anymore. The last time I visited, they'd converted it into Eliza's home studio. A ring light, a vanity mirror, a fake plant in the corner. My childhood bookshelf painted white to match her new aesthetic. They offered me the couch. Eliza said, "We'll make it cozy." I remember lying there at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was the only one who felt like a stranger under that roof. I haven't replied yet. Not because I won't, but because maybe this year they can. Wait, I lit a candle tonight, one of the ones Grandma used to keep on her mantel, rose and cedar wood, the kind that makes the air feel old and familiar. I held the tiny lavender envelope in my hand for a long time, then placed it in a shadow box beside the photo of me at 16. The one where I'm holding the dress like a prayer I didn't know wouldn't be answered. Not everything they take has to be given. Not every silence needs to be filled. I didn't go home for Christmas. Instead, I bought myself a new kettle. Not out of necessity, the old one still worked. But I wanted something that whistled. Something that announced when it was boiling, even if no one else was around to hear it. There's a strange kind of comfort in that. The idea that something in this apartment makes noise just for me. They sent photos, of course. A group shot around the tree, all matching pajamas. Eliza in the center, holding a mug I once gave her. The one with the moon phases that she swore she'd never use. The caption read, "Missing a piece of our puzzle this year." I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I finally understood something. They don't want me. They want the version of me that makes them feel generous. The grateful sister. The easy daughter. The one who doesn't ask for anything too real. New Year's passed without a call. No midnight texts. No thinking of you messages. Just silence. The kind that wraps around your chest at 12:01 and whispers, "You are alone now." Fully. No one noticed. I made soup. The kind Grandma used to make. Potato and leek, with too much pepper. I ate it on the floor, by the window, with a blanket around my legs, and a glass of wine I didn't finish. And I didn't feel sad. I just felt honest. Sometimes, the quiet becomes a kind of truth, loud in its own way. Like my absence finally took up space. A few days later, Eliza posted something on her story. a boomerang of her spinning in the dress. The caption said, "Still obsessed." I don't know what I felt. It wasn't rage. It wasn't grief. It was something slower, like watching dust gather on a shelf you no longer clean. I visited Grandma's old house last week. It's been empty since she passed. The estate's still tangled in paperwork, no one wanting to take responsibility but everyone hoping for a slice. I still have a key. The lock stuck a little, but the smell hit me the moment I opened the door. Lavender and wood polish, the ghosts of Sunday dinners, the weight of being someone's favorite, even if it didn't outlive them. I walked room to room, touched the banister, sat on the edge of her bed and closed my eyes, letting the stillness settle inside me like something I'd been missing. Then I opened her closet. The shelves were mostly bare now, except for a small cardboard box labeled in her handwriting, "For her." My breath caught. Inside, a handwritten note, the hem of the dress, the part she cut off to shorten it years ago, and a photo of the two of us. Me at 16, her sitting behind me, hands on my shoulders. The note was short. She won't understand the weight of it, but you always did. I see you, sweetheart. Always have. I pressed the paper to my chest and closed my eyes. They keep telling the story like it was always hers, but they don't know the pieces that were hidden for me. The small proof that someone once saw me fully before I learned to shrink. I didn't tell anyone about the note. I folded it twice, slid it into a book I'd left at Grandma's, The Secret Garden, the same copy we read together during the summer I had chicken pox. It felt right to keep it there, tucked into a story about locked doors, forgotten things, and something blooming where no one bothered to look. Mom called 2 weeks ago, first time since the wedding. Her voice was light, rehearsed, the tone she uses when she doesn't want to ask, but also doesn't want to be the one left behind. "I've been thinking about us," she said, drawing out the word like it meant more than it did. I stayed quiet. She continued, "You know Eliza didn't mean to hurt you. It was just all so fast, and we thought, well, we didn't want to pressure you. You've always preferred your own space." That last line hung in the air like perfume gone sour. They always twist my solitude into coldness. They never consider that I'm quiet because no one listens. She invited me to a family dinner next month. "Just us girls," she said. "Eliza will be there. She wants to reconnect." I almost laughed. They only want reconnection when their story feels unfinished. When they realize the version of events they wrote doesn't work without the character they erased. I told her I'd think about it. I won't go. Not because I'm angry, but because healing doesn't mean walking back into the house where the wound was made. The night after her call, I took down the empty hanger in my closet. I wrapped it in linen and tucked it under my bed, not out of spite, but because I was done leaving space for things that don't return. Then I moved the photo, the one of me at 16, out of the closet and onto my desk. I found an old wooden frame at a thrift store, sanded it down, painted it the same dusky rose as the old bedroom walls in Grandma's house. It sits next to my kettle now. Every time the steam curls into the air, I see her eyes. Hopeful. Nervous. Soft. The girl who still believed that showing up meant being kept. Eliza messaged me again this morning. Just a heart. No words. I didn't reply. I just stared at the tiny, pulsing icon for a while, then let it disappear behind another notification. A shipping alert for the new rug I ordered. burnt orange, woven, the kind you can sit on barefoot, with tea in hand and not feel like you're waiting for someone to call you back. This week, I started sleeping with the window cracked open again. The city hum doesn't bother me like it used to. There's something comforting about a world that moves on. A reminder that not everything important needs to be loud to be real. I still have the lavender thread. I keep it in a glass dish, by the bed now, beside a half-burned candle and a pebble I found on a walk last winter. Things I didn't expect to keep. Things that chose me, quietly. Last Sunday, I walked to the bookstore on 9th. The weather had that soft in-between feel. Not cold, not warm. The kind that makes your coat feel unnecessary until the wind reminds you otherwise. I hadn't planned on buying anything, but I ended up in the used section, fingers grazing the spines like they might whisper something back. A woman beside me picked up a book I knew well, Letters to a Young Poet. She turned to me, held it up and said, "Is this worth it?" I nodded. Then, without thinking, said, "Only if you're ready to feel misunderstood in a beautiful way." She smiled. That's the best kind, isn't it? I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it was the first time in months that I felt connected, not needed, not expected. Just seen, for a flicker, by a stranger who didn't ask me to be anyone else. That night I sat on the floor with all my old journals. Some I hadn't touched since college. One still had a pressed flower inside, a bluebell I'd picked the day I got accepted into the program I never got to attend because the money disappeared. Reallocated, Mom had said. Eliza needed support. Her future was uncertain. It was just money, and you always land on your feet. I did, but not because of them. I read through pages I'd forgotten I'd written. Lonely entries, dreams I whispered only to paper, half-started letters I never sent. One was to Grandma, written the week she passed. I had wanted to tell her thank you, for the dress, for the quiet belief. But the letter ended with just 2 lines. They won't remember I was yours. But I will. This morning, Eliza posted a photo of herself. The dress again, but shorter now. Cropped. She'd altered it. Modernized the vintage. The caption read, My chest tightened. Not from sadness, from the finality of it. She had cut it. Physically. Irrevocably. Turned something sacred into an aesthetic. I didn't cry. Instead, I opened a blank page and wrote, You can't ruin what you never understood. Mom texted this afternoon. Hey love, haven't heard from you. Just want to know you're okay. Eliza's been feeling sad about everything. Maybe we could all talk. Maybe over brunch? I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, but because the only part of me that ever felt heard is the one they never made space for. I lit the cedarwood candle, boiled water, poured it into the mug Eliza once gave me for my birthday. The one with chipped gold on the handle that says, You are sunshine in curling script. The irony doesn't sting anymore. I drank slowly, barefoot on the new rug. Soft, quiet, mine. Not all absences are punishments. Some are preservation. Some are a girl finally walking herself home. Spring came early this year. The light changed first, gentler in the mornings, golden and forgiving in the late afternoons. I opened the windows again. The breeze felt cleaner, somehow, like it had traveled far to find me. Eliza sent one more message, A voice note this time. It started with a sigh. Hey, I know I've hurt you. I didn't mean to. Things happened so fast, and I didn't know how to include you without making things weird. I know that's not an excuse. I miss you. There was a pause. Then, please don't disappear. I replayed it twice. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to listen carefully in case there was something hidden between the words. Some glimmer of the sister who used to draw stars in the corners of her letters. There wasn't, just guilt without depth, missing me without asking what they erased. Didn't reply. Instead, I packed a small overnight bag and drove north. Not far, just to the cabin Grandma used to rent in early summer. The one by the lake with the crooked porch and the birds that always sound like they're laughing. I hadn't been there since before she passed. I wasn't sure it would still be standing. It was dusty, quiet, a little smaller than I remembered. But there. I stayed for 2 nights. No phone, no posts. Just a journal, 2 books, and the photo of me in the dress. Still framed, still watching. On the last morning, I stitched the lavender thread. Not into a dress. Into a small square of muslin I folded into a pouch and stitched shut with steady hands. No meaning except the act. No ceremony except the silence. Just something I owed myself. Something sacred that didn't need to be worn to be real. When I got home, the light in my apartment hit different, like it had been waiting for me to return as someone softer. Not broken, not angry, just full. Like a room finally opened after a long, dark winter. I framed the note from Grandma, hung it above my desk, right next to the lavender bundle. Every now and then, I catch myself reading it again. Not because I forget, but because remembering is how I stay whole. Mom still sends messages, short ones, mostly holiday updates and neutral invitations. I don't always answer. Sometimes I do, politely. Briefly, love becomes a different shape when you stop needing it to look like theirs. Eliza and I don't speak much. I see her updates. She still wears the dress, or what's left of it. She doesn't know it was never about the fabric. It was about the quiet loyalty. The years folded into seams, the promise behind the ribbon. But that was never her burden. It was mine to release. And I have. I walk differently now. Straighter. Lighter. Not like someone carrying a wound, but like someone who finally set it down. There are moments I miss them. Not the way they are. The way I once imagined they could be. But even longing fades when you learn to love your own company. I make tea every night. Lavender and rose. Sometimes I speak aloud. Just one line, softly. Like a ritual. I see you, sweetheart. Always have. And I do. Now, I finally do.